Welcome to Season 6, Episode 11 of The Sailing Show, the monthly podcast that will steer and inspire you along your sailing journey. I'm Abby Ehler. I've competed in the Volvo Ocean Race and worked shoreside with the America's Cup and Sail GP. I'm also a director of the Magenta Project, a UK charity organisation that is committed to developing pathways and generating opportunities for women in performance sailing. On this podcast, I'll be chatting to a wide range of women within the sailing community, including Olympic champions, ocean racers, change makers, and up-and-coming champions. On this episode, I'll be chatting with Demila Tassin, who has recently returned from competing in the Mini Transat Race for her first time. It's a race Demilas had been dreaming of for the past 5 years, and we'll be hearing about her journey to the start line, the challenges, the highs and lows, and what she has learnt from this incredible experience. The first leg of the Mini Transat started on the 27th of September from Les Sables in France. 19 competitors set sail bound for Santa Cruz de la Palma in the Canary Islands, with a total of 1,350 miles to negotiate. And as we will find out, many obstacles to overcome on that first leg. The second leg started from La Palma on the 29th of October, crossing the Atlantic to Saint-François in Guadeloupe. A total race distance of just over 4,000 nautical miles, and no small feat, as this race has acquired the reputation of a true test of ocean racing, and for good reason. It's a single-handed, without outside assistance or weather routing by satellite, in a 6.5 metre boat. So Djemila, thank you so much for joining me. You're fresh back from finishing the 2021 Mini Transat Race, and I can't wait to hear all about it. So before we get sort of chatting about the race itself, which it sounds really exciting, I wanted to find out what had sparked the interest for you in the Mini Transat Race itself. You know, what had led you to that particular race?
Well, thank you for having me here. And so what is the beginning of the story? I guess I've always liked to sail, and I've always loved the Atlantic. It's my ocean. I grew up in the islands, so for me it was like my garden. But then I got completely obsessed with crossing it by sail. And after I did the first crossing when I was 18 on the boat, like hitchhiking a boat, I discovered the minis, and suddenly it was like falling in love. You know, it's like this little boat where you can actually sail alone, so no one is going to tell you what to do. And then it's little, so I guess, oh, it's a small boat, it's going to be easy. No way. But then you discover that afterwards. And I don't know, it unites all the things that I wanted to do. Sail alone, cross the Atlantic again, and race, which is speed. So I always like that. Wow. So once you discover those boats, you just try to go for it as possible, right? You like start watching all these videos and getting the idea in your head of like, I want to do that. So I guess wow. That's how it started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, great. As you said, it combines a lot of passions into one, and it's mm-hmm. no small feat to achieve this. And I mean, it's a very competitive fleet, and it's quite hard to actually get an entry, I believe, because it's so popular.
You need a couple of years.
Yeah. So, I mean, how did your journey sort of pan out to get to the start of this Mini Transat Race in terms of getting a boat, getting an entry, sponsorship? How does that all pan out?
So for me, I bought the boat 3 years ago. So I had 3 years to be ready for the start. So that's a lot. Usually people do it in 2 or 1 year is a bit too short. 3 is a bit too long. 2 is the medium. But so I got the boat and I brought it to Barcelona, which was the base I wanted to train in. And from there you go really like step by step. First year, you don't even think about the Mini Transat. You like, first I learn how to sail the boat. I learn what the spinnaker is, and then I'll see. And really the idea of the Transat comes with the time and with you gaining insurance in the boat. So at the beginning, it's just like learning the base, then doing your first race, then doing your qualification, which is super important. It's 1,000 miles solo in the Med or in the Atlantic. You can have your phone That's the difference with the race. But you got to do it straight. Like you can't stop. It's like a buckle, like a circle, and you have to start and finish. You can only stop if there's like force 8 weather somewhere. But and after those 10 days that you spend on the boat, then you realize, okay, maybe I'm ready for the Atlantic, or at least I'm thinking about it a bit more. And then it's all about racing until you have 1,500 miles in races that you've started and finished. And then you can actually subscribe to the Mini Transat.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So it's quite a quite a marked out pathway and a number of sort of boxes that you would have to tick off to ensure that you're ready to go. And I guess leading up to the start of the race itself, say in that week before, and then arriving in Les Sables for the start, I mean, how did that all feel that you finally made it to the start line?
Well, I guess so. People say the hardest part is getting to the start line, right? It's the longest journeys where you have all the problems, and it's kind of the Mini Transat is the cherry on top of the pie you already ate. And you get there and you're like, all right, now it's gonna be funny. Finally, now it's like your reward.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
So the mentally, it's like I made it to here. Now I'm going to sail and we'll see what happens. And everything you've learned, you're going to do it in the boat. You're going to put all your energy there, but you already acquired everything you needed to get there. Yeah. And it is very scary. It's like, everyone is super afraid on the starting line day. But if you made it there, you're ready. And that's cool because that's why everybody's telling you. And deep inside,
Yeah. Yeah. You've done the hard work.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, that most of the hard work and most of the challenges are in actually getting to the start of the race. So, like you said, hopefully you get to the point that you're ready to go and you can actually enjoy that moment. But moving ahead to leg one, I mean, leg one was just over 1,000 miles. You had to cross the Bay of Biscay, which in itself is a fairly nasty place of ocean at the best of times. And yeah, it didn't quite go to plan, did it? So leg one was going from Les Sables to La Palma.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, talk us through that leg.
So first of all, 5 days before the start, right, we have the volcano that starts erupting. So everyone was like, all right, now what? So basically we start and they tell us, okay, so you start. We don't know yet where you're going to be finished because we don't know if the volcano is going to be impeding the boats to get to the harbor or something. So maybe we send you to another island. It was like, all right, let's start this and then we'll see. And we had a front to cross in the bay, as always. So I guess everyone started pretty with a lot of energy. And then on the second day, we had the front and everyone was pretty much sick and tired and bored. It was like, why are we doing this? It's always hard to go upwind with the minis. They're not made for that. They're really, really bad at it. So we had 3.5 meters of wave and 30 knots, and it's never funny. So, but you're ready for it and your boat will handle. So that's the only difference, you're like, I'm inside, I'm not going to go out. I know my boat will handle and I'm just going to wait for this to finish. And it's good to start also with strong condition because you trust your boat. You trust the boat, basically, it's going to handle and you're going to get over it. And then suddenly the wind shifts, you ignore it and you go down to Portugal, no problem. So then we got to the coast of Spain, and when we were about to pass Finisterre, receive information from the race direction that the big front was coming with a gust over 50 knots, and that we had to find shelter if we were above Finisterre. Above Vigo. I think something like this. There was a latitude. If you're above that, go find shelter. And if you are below, you can continue because you will pass south of the front.
Okay.
So then basically we all speak on the VHF And we all decided that it was safer to go to the harbor. We know boats are not made for more than 15 knots and that no one wants to break. And we don't want to be rescued. We want to finish. So we all took the decision of going to the harbor. And everyone except the one that were really, really south went to the harbor. And it's funny because you find yourself with other skippers in this little harbor in the middle of Galice. And it was very funny, actually. And really, like, the storm was huge. We were in the harbor and the boats were shaking.
Yeah. Wow.
So then the only problem came when the storm was gone and we had to go back. And everyone decided to leave the harbor whenever they wanted. Like, some left at 2 a.m, some left later. In some harbor, they got help to go out. In other harbors, they didn't. They had to go out to sails. So everyone started in a different place and a different time. And that's a problem because the race is not a race anymore. It was like a convoyage. It was just traveling together.
So that decision to leave, having sought shelter, was that left with the skippers? That decision of when you could leave was left with the skippers, or did the race direction give a time by which you can leave after this time? No,
that was left by the skipper. It was like, as soon as the front is passed, you can decide and go out.
Wow, it's a really interesting situation because, then it creates this, competition of...
But even the time wouldn't have worked because we were all in different harbors.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if everyone's out at night and some are 50 miles away from others, doesn't make any sense. I think it was a hard decision for the race direction, but it's always the safest. In class mini, it's important that we are safe so that we can continue racing, right? We're still not allowed to race legally, so we are under a lot of... approval from French affair of sailing, and what's important is that we don't take too many risks. So everyone knows that that's the first thing. Then yes, there's a lot of discussion about how it was managed and how the results were given with the people that didn't stop and people that continue sailing. And then it went to a jury when we all got there, and then the jury decided to give 24 hours to all the skippers that stop and not to the skippers that didn't stop. So it doesn't change anything, but it reorganized the podium, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did it go for you setting back out? When did you decide, okay, I'm ready to, the worst is gone, I'm going to head out?
I mean, basically the France passed at in the middle of the night, and then 6 a.m. it was wind shift, low wind, and sun was rising, and basically we start getting ready. And I think by 10 we were waiting for a Zodiac to help us to go out. Yeah. So the guy came 9, and then we were ready to go, and then we go out. But for us, it was not a race anymore. We raced with the skippers. We were in Dust Harbor. Yeah. So we made a little race in between us. But a guy in front left 3 hours before us with the same boat. He made it maybe 12 hours before me or something. It really made a difference the time you were leaving here. Wow. We didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so you're back out at sea and now you're heading into La Palma. And did the race direction then say, well, okay, it's safe to get in? Exactly. And that must have been, that's your hometown, right? That's where you grew up. So, I mean, tell us about the welcome and what it was like, sailing into your stomping ground.
I mean, it's always a special moment going to the harbor, and when your family is there waiting for you, it's even more special. And my family hadn't really seen the boat because they live there, right? So they don't come so often to Europe. So it was good for them to see it sailing, and of course to get there. And there's a lot of people showing support from the island, so that's super cool. And then we also had the opportunity to show the boats to a lot of kids from the island. And I don't know, cool. It was nice. Really, really nice being home. Yeah. I just slept at home for 12 hours per day for the whole entire stopover.
Well, I'm sure after that first leg, it was well-needed rest and recuperation. And so setting out for leg 2, and this is the kind of the big leg, even though the leg 1 has been fairly big in itself. This is crossing the Atlantic across to Guadeloupe. How do you reset? You've had a big first leg. You're going to be quite physically, mentally quite drained. Was it just a case of catching up on sleep, good food? Are you really excited to be going back out on that leg 2, or was there a bit of like, oh God, I know what's coming?
The last days of the first leg were Portuguese trade winds, and that's not strong, but like medium, like 20, 22 knots. And really I was like, okay, what the heck? Like, jibing here with all the weights in the boat is hard, right? It wasn't easy. And so when I got to La Palma, I was like, we're going to do this for 2 weeks on the second leg. How is this going to happen? And I start asking around, and people are like, yeah, you just close your eyes, jibe, and then you start again. So I was a little bit afraid. But at the same time, the first leg is like a qualifying, right? It's like if you get to La Palma, it's all right. You can do the second leg. You're strong enough. You're mentally ready. You can do it. So I guess I just slept a lot. I spent a lot of time with my family. I partied a little bit, but not really. I was in a mood of just resting. It was the first time in 2 years could really just rest and be like, quiet. Okay, I'm ready. I fixed whatever I had to fix on the boat with my dad. And then the last days, the tension is coming back. The idea of, okay, you're going back there and you're going to cross it, and you just want to leave. The 5 last days, you just want to go.
Yeah. And so, in terms of provisioning the boat, do you have to carry everything with you for leg 2 on leg 1, or were you able to?
No, we all organize like package that we send with food for second leg.
So
you change your clothes, you change everything.
Oh, your food, I'm thinking. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
food, water, you take a lot of water. And
okay, wow.
You change everything.
It's an organization in itself, just sorting out all of your logistics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your first transat, you don't really know what you're going to be eating or not, and how much water you're going to be drinking.
Yeah. Okay. And so, leg 2, you set off from La Palma 29th of October, I believe, and you're heading across the Atlantic, 4,000 nautical miles across to Guadeloupe. So talk us through that leg. And I'm really intrigued by, we were chatting just quickly before this podcast about your the information that you receive on board, and the fact that your weather comes in via audio radio. It's very simplified. You get a ranking update, but other than that, you have no outside assistance, no weather grid files to speak of. I'm just intrigued how you strategize with such little information. So talk us through that.
So basically, the 2 days before the start, all you do is meteorology. You meet up with different meteorologists and you do your routing over and over and over. You read the situation in the Atlantic, and you should have a strategy before you leave, at least a plan A and a plan B. And somehow, like, I'm going that way, and then if those parameters are not the right ones, then I go south or something. And I think people that already did a transat did this very well. Newbies were a bit worse at doing that. But basically, so every 24 hours at 3 in the afternoon, you get one weather report on the radio. And then the Atlantic is divided by zones, and they give you for each zone pressure, wind direction, and intensity for 3 days every 12 hours. So you have a good outlook of what's going. And you also have this general situation in the Atlantic, so position of the high pressure and the low pressures. And it's basically like old school, right? You draw your own isobars, you draw your own wind vectors, you plot your own position on this chart, and you're like, okay, I'm here. I'm close to the high pressure or I'm far away. And then I decide I want to go south, get more wind, go to the deep trade winds. Or no, I decide to go the shortest way and go west and maybe I'll find less wind. And at the beginning, it's really hard because, all the wind is never like they tell you. It's always a little bit more to the north or a little bit more to the east, a little bit weaker. And so you don't know if you are at the right place or if you should jibe or not. And the first day you just jibe a lot. You go a bit west and a bit south and a bit west and a bit south. At least it was like that for me. I was completely lost. I cried a lot till I made it to pretty much to Cape Verde. And then I got the deep trade winds, and then it's all to the west pretty much.
Right.
Okay. You play, but you really focus on the condition you want to have, right? If you need 15 knots, as soon as you have 12, you jibe, you go south. Right. You get back to the deep trade winds. And that's important. You do the strategy, but you have to be really focused and really alert on the condition you have around. If the pressure is going high, if the wind is dropping, you have to jibe. Like you have to get out of there.
Yeah, interesting. And have you had a chance, I'm sort of jumping a bit here, but to look back on your track and maybe to have looked back with a coach or a meteorologist and to review the decisions that you made and, to think, oh God, I should have done that there, or that was a really good move. I mean, have you had that chance to look over it?
Not yet. I've seen my track, but I haven't sat with the meteorologist or the coach to study it really. Yeah. I know I did south, so it wasn't really my plan. I was just, I guess, driven by the high pressure, and I wanted more pressure on the sails. So I did a lot of south compared to other routes.
Yeah.
Not too much, but okay. So it was a good route for this transit. Yeah, there's a lot of things I have to see back on the track and learn mistakes. I mean, for sure, we all made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, but I guess that's
review.
Doing these things for the first time. I mean, it's a huge learning experience, a massive learning curve. But I guess to look back on it, I mean, what have you learnt? What are your sort of takeaways in terms of if you were to set out and do this again tomorrow, what would you do differently?
I mean, I know that the second leg, I was pretty much alone. My IS wasn't showing anyone around me for many, many days. And I love that because I did my own strategy, which is hard to do when you have other boats around and you're speaking on the VHF and you're discussing about jibing or not jibing. So for me, it was really important to be alone and to do my own strategy. And I think it's the only way I can sail, right? Because I sail on intuition and I need to be alone to trust myself. So I know that was the good thing. And if I do that again, I'll do it the same way. I need to sail alone on my own and take my own decisions. So that's something good. But I had to leave the harbor with a strategy in my mind. That was the big mistake. I left thinking, okay, I'll see day 2, day 3, how it's going on. And I'll decide. And no, you have to decide before, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you lose mental capacities.
Yeah. Just thinking about it and just questioning yourself. Whereas I guess if you've got a game plan, then you can at least to sort of say, right, I'm either going to stick to the game plan or I'm making a decision because of X, Y, Z to move away. Yeah, no, interesting. And in terms of managing yourself, in terms of your sleep, your food, managing the maintenance of the boat, did you manage to get into a routine or?
For sure. Yeah, I think we all pretty much need a routine in a boat. So it takes 4 to 5 days to finally get a proper routine. At least for my first transatlantic. But it's cool. Your body finds its own routine. You wake up always pretty much the same time. You find energy at the same time. You know when your body's tired, when you have to sleep. You eat, you trim the sails, you go back to sleep, I don't know. It's really the body finds its own way on the boat, and after that, it's all about eating enough, sleeping enough, and always being ready to act if anything happens.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
This transit, we had very little trade winds, very like trade winds. I don't know how it's called in English, but when the trade winds are not there, basically.
The doldrums, you mean, or
no? The trade winds were really, really weak. Like there was a low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic where the high pressure is supposed to be. So big tail wag and little, very, very little trade wind. So we had 12 knots, so 15 knots average.
Right. Okay.
So conditions were good. Conditions were you could sleep the whole night, watch the stars, put the boat on autopilot, and condition got stronger again the last 4 or 5 days. And then you realize, oh my God, if this had been for the whole transit, I don't know if I would have make it.
Well,
but I guess at the end, your body's, you're completely, you make one with the boat and that's cool.
Yeah. And so getting into the finish, I mean, that must have been some sort of euphoria just knowing that you've made it. 2,700 miles from on that leg 2. Talk us through crossing that finish line.
So the last 50 miles, the pressure is going high and high because, you want to make it. You don't want to break anything. It's night. Condition is strong. You have 20, 25 knots, 3 meters of waves. And you're like, if I break something now, I'm done. Like, I want to finish this. So I stayed on the helm for the whole night for sure. You just want to get there and it was, for me, it was night, and around the Guadeloupe, there's a lot of fishing devices. Mm. So it's like, if I get into a fishing line, damn, I'm going to have to stop for hours and stuff. So the finish wasn't really funny. For me, it was a lot of stress. I was just like, oh my God, I want to make it so bad. And I don't want to break anything before. But then you get there, you cross the line, and everyone is waiting for you at the pontoon, and everyone is like yelling, they put your music. You step down and you realize, you finished, you've done, you made it. It's like, wow, you can actually do this on your own, right? You can cross that little lake that is called the Atlantic, and it's doable, and we all do it, and every 2 years there's a bunch of people doing it, and I don't know, it's awesome. It's just a moment of fulfilling a dream, and it doesn't happen every day. No,
exactly. Well, I'm happy that you're able to sort of enjoy that moment and to really soak up the achievement of what you have achieved. It's an amazing feat to do what you've done on your own. And I guess that leads me on to, you finishing that race, have you now got the ambition to do it again, or have you ticked that box and I don't ever want to do it again?
I have a lot of videos saying, please don't ever let me do this again. I really hate this. Please don't let me come back. But actually, I'm going to erase those videos. I was so afraid before the transit not to have anything after, that I already signed for another boat to go back. So I'll be training in Lorient, and I'll be hopefully coming back for 2023. Now there's more and more boats that want to do this race, and qualification are even harder now because we're too many, basically. And there's only 85 spots. So we'll see. I'll try. The sooner you get the miles, the more chances you have to be in, but I'll go train, race, and I will see if I get to 2023 or not.
Right.
It's the main objective.
Yeah. Well, that sounds fantastic. And
it's a new boat, faster.
Okay.
So.
Wow. So, it sounds fantastic, and I'm happy to hear that you've forgotten about the bad bits and you can only remember the good bits, which is quite typical of offshore racing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been fascinating to hear about your journey, and I'm sure it'd be great listening for all of those youngsters who are trying to follow in your footsteps to knock out a Mini Transat race. So thank you for joining us, and we wish you all the best for your future mini campaign, and we'll be following you, looking out for how you progress. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that concludes this episode of The Sailing Show. It's been fantastic to hear from Djemila. I've really enjoyed learning more about the solo sailing and completely hadn't appreciated just how little information from the outside world competitors are permitted whilst racing, making the Mini Transat a true test of an individual physically and mentally. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share this episode if you know someone who would benefit from listening. And please continue to follow the Magenta Project on our website and social media. And to keep up to date on women's sports in general, not just sailing, check out Wisp Sports online and social media. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you tuning in.